Barcelona are a work in progress, which doesn't really fit the narrative of those grand European nights. This is supposed to be your team. But clearly, due to injuries, Xavi still instilling his ideas, and a team that desperately needs some upgrades. Not just players or rotations, but actual different players who aren't playing at the club right now to upgrade their squad. This is what Barcelona had tonight. There was some bad. Honestly, there was also some good. So let's hit those 5 headlines from Barcelona's 1-1 draw with Napoli in what is their first Europa League, aka the UEFA Cup, night in 19 years. Headline 1 is Barca's right side. Unlike against Espanyol, when so much of that match came down to intensity and feeling and all of what comes in a derby, this match against Napoli was actually really decided by tactics and why it finished 1-1, to be honest, because both managers got things right and got things wrong. I think Spalletti had an easier job because Barcelona's weaknesses are very, very clear and wide open for anybody who watches them. There were some givens going in that Spalletti could capitalize, knowing Barcelona were going to struggle. How do we think Insigne against Mingueza was going to go? Napoli's game plan was to send the dribbling midfielder, either Ruiz or Mingueza, to Mingueza's side as well. Osimhen then setting up on Mingueza's side or running into the vacated space when Insigne would pin Mingueza back. It should be noted that Napoli does oftentimes try to strong side Insigne's left side of the field. So this wasn't just a tactic against Barcelona. It just happened to work really well because of Barcelona's weaknesses. Because Mingueza is not really going to be overlapping and was going to have to stay at home to deal with Insigne, Adama was more easily getting doubled or triple teamed. And Nico was doing a really good job pressing, but he wasn't really helping Adama either in build-up. He's not going to be overlapping in that way either, because that means that they're going to leave the middle of the field exposed. And as I said, the game plan then was also to have Ruiz or Mingueza to dribble right into Mingueza's channel. And I know it sounds like I am picking on Mingueza, which I think I kind of am. It's a position where, no disrespect to him, I think the player is a certain level. Mingueza actually did decently well against Insigne tonight. The one goal coming from Alba's side, not his, with all the things going on. He only really committed those 2 significant fouls, and both of those came in Napoli's half of the field, not hurting Barcelona in the long run. He also didn't pick up any cards either. So good on Mingueza for a European night when he hasn't been playing all season long, and this could be a really pivotal moment for him. Did he earn more minutes with this? I'm not really sure about that, but it also isn't a match that's going to say, hey, we can never play this guy again because he's completely out of his depth. I mean, he was fine, but that might be the best he can give you, which is, again, another worrisome sign for him. I want to thank OneFootball for sponsoring this video. OneFootball is the app I use to keep me up to date on everything FC Barcelona, as well as all the other teams that Alemany might be scouting right now for a big summer transfer window. With a custom-tailored homepage, stay up to date with breaking news, live scores, and even transfer news. While on the go, you can check with matches in live time and watch videos afterwards. Use the link in the description below for a free download of OneFootball on Android or iOS to put all your football in one place. And you also help out a tiny Barca channel like this one too. Thanks again to OneFootball for sponsoring this video. Now back to the on-field business. And speaking of being punished, too is punished for misses. Whether it was Ferran Torres with that one in the first half, or that second one in the first half, or that third, well, okay, we'll get on to Torres in a second, or Nico being indecisive with the final ball, or Pedri also with a miss. Barcelona could not make something happen. And then that miss from Torres in the first half immediately leads to Napoli scoring on the other side, which it just feels like it sums up Barcelona's whole season so far. Barca can make the most of their chances, and the other team capitalizes. And this first goal in particular, it's not great. There are some Barca goals that I have to give credit to the opposition, but this one wasn't great. The goal comes on the right side. Pedri fails to track Zielinski. Garcia's caught between bringing the help to Alba and sliding over to Zielinski, who's making that late run into the box. This isn't a defense of Eric. He made a mistake, but he was also caught in 2 minds because Alba went to ground when he shouldn't have. Ter Stegen got the first save, and Zielinski finishes the second. So mistakes by multiple Barcelona players, whether through inexperience, whether through just sheer lack of physicality, or whatever you want to call it. There were a multitude of mistakes from multiple Barcelona players that lead to this first Napoli goal. And breaking down that film, I mean, for Xavi, at least he can use it as a learning point for a lot of different players. Unlike the Eric Garcia RDT goal from the weekend, where you just go, Eric, you got to put that one behind you because that can't happen. But for multiple guys, it's like, hey, none of this can happen for any of you. We got to fix this all, and the Napoli don't score. 3 is the De Jong experiment. Little disclaimer here. I'm definitely going to be talking more about this with Rafa on the podcast that should come out in a few hours or early tomorrow. And with him as a single pivot, something that people have been calling out over and over and over again, did it really work? I'm not sure what grade you're going to give Barca here because, as I had warned, it's not like for like. Busquets' job as a single pivot and De Jong, because their profiles are so radically different, aren't going to do the same job, which means Barcelona in their midfield has to radically play differently, and I don't think that they were up to all those changes that meant tonight. Starting Nico made a ton of sense because Nico then dropped in, as did Pedri. They both are decent enough in build-up, but the spacing is just kind of all out of whack. And when Barca want to press and get the ball back, that's when the De Jong, Nico, Pedri midfield was at its best. But then with Barca defending, that's where the problems came. Believe it or not, even without Busquets, Barca were in a medium block with a high line, and Napoli aren't an elite side, but they do have the talent to keep the ball. So they did have the ability to pull De Jong out at times. And Napoli were looking to take advantage when chaos occurred, when a ball was mishit or the ball was not under control in the middle third of the field. And it definitely worked for Napoli in the first half. So in the first half, if I had to give a grade to that De Jong experiment, I'd give it kind of maybe a B-, a C+. I actually don't think that De Jong was really at fault for any of the major things that happened with Napoli. It's just that Napoli's game plan was ready for some of that chaos in the midfield. When Nico, as I mentioned earlier, was pulled out to the right wing to help Adama and Mingueza, and that left Pedri falter forward to try to create anything and kind of be this attacking midfielder. And also Xavi in his system wants his interiors to score. So Pedri's got to push forward, which means that De Jong has how many yards of actual square footage or yards, whatever you want to call it, that he has to cover, which is just too much for him. So I actually think he did an admirable job covering that space. But as I said, when the ball was mishit just a little bit, and then Ruiz or Mingueza were just coming the other way, De Jong was, not that he was caught out, but there's no way he could cover all of that ground. And that's where the issues were. And then the second half, Busquets comes on. And there's a lot of different reasons for this. As I said, I want to really break this down more on the podcast, but Barcelona were better. They started to control the match. They started to control the midfield. And it's not just that De Jong came off for Busquets, it's also that Xavi came on for Nico. And then the roles were much more established, and things that they've been working on, the chemistry, all those things throughout this whole season made more sense. Pedri's like, oh, I know where I am. Xavi gets to say, hey, I know where I'm supposed to be. And Busquets says, hey, I'm Busquets. I know where I've been for the last decade plus. And I think they just worked. The players were more comfortable, and that's helped them control that midfield in the second half. As I said, when Napoli on the road were starting to lose some of their steam, and that possession that Barca were using was actually being used to wear them down. 4 is that you create chances and you create goals. Or not. So here's the roses and thorns of it. Barcelona created a ton of chances. 20 attempts to just 4. But it was 4 attempts on goal to 4 attempts on goal. And that is the unsatisfactory stat here. But the positive is that Barca did get that goal. And it wasn't just luck. Adama got doubled. And Insigne was too late to slide over. And so Adama was able to put one into the box. And it was fortunate that it hit Jesus' hand, yes, but as I said, Barcelona created that with their consistent pressure on the press, getting the ball back, not allowing Napoli out of their own half, and making their own luck in that instance. And then it wound up being a really important goal for Torres to get. Of all the misses before that, you could have thought he could have missed it, but to convert, that's a good sign. Unfortunately, yes, Barcelona failed to win this game as opposed to when looking at Espanyol, when they really had to fight back for the 2-2. Yes, Barcelona were able to equalize, but they definitely should have won this match. Just too many wasted opportunities. Underlying the fact that Barca needs someone who's just going to finish the chance, which happens to be something that Ansu Fati does really, really well. Yeah, I'm making that excuse, but there is little excuse for the players on the field. What's crazier is that when Dembélé came on, yeah, the 73,000 people were jeering him and giving him a trouble, but I hope they go home and realize that Dembélé, with what he was able to inject in that second half, he's probably going to be coming off the bench for Xavi. I don't think he's going to be a starter. Xavi won't do that. But he's proving that Xavi is going to need him to finish top 4. There are going to be a moment. There's going to be a point or 2 points, the difference between 3 points and 1 point, the difference between 0 and 1, when Dembélé is going to be able to come into the game in the second half, very much like Busquets did, and completely flip that game on its head. Barcelona were by far the better team with Xavi, Busquets, and Dembélé on the pitch tonight. And that's something that, again, 73,000 people in that stadium weren't willing to accept. But it makes me feel like, hey, on the road, maybe Barcelona need to get some points because they're able to play their full assortment of players without having to worry about all that nonsense in the background. I know we're mad at Dembélé. We're frustrated because, yeah, I watched that happen. And I say, why can't this guy be in the team next year? Why did his agent or whoever it was, wherever you want to put the blame, it's just frustrating. He's not going to be a part of Barcelona moving forward because he does something that no one else in the team does. And 5 is Ferran Torres, master of none. He missed 7 chances tonight. Yes, he had the penalty goal, but Barcelona should have won, and it should have been Ferran Torres with a brace that won it for Barcelona tonight. Maybe he is still regaining his match fitness, but it's finally a bit worrying for me, I'll admit that. His ability to combine in the middle means that he's probably more useful as a 9, but he's not clinical enough there to make a difference, at least not yet. And on the left, his defensive positioning is decent, but he's not looking to get to the goal line and make something happen. Plus, I think his chemistry with Alba clearly wasn't up to snuff. It was better in the second half, but not there in the first half. He does a bunch of stuff really well, most of it relying on his ability to understand and find open space. But he's been so frustrating because he hasn't made a positive impact with that space yet. And of course, especially on European nights, it comes down to making or missing. And that miss in the 88th minute, geez Louise. I mean, that is one that I hope that he's able to put behind him, because that's a kind of miss that comes back and definitely haunts you if you're eliminated in that return leg a week from now. And speaking of that match next week, it's 1-1, so everything left to play for. And I actually think that might be a good thing for Barcelona, just because Ron Araujo might be back from injury, and you never know. I mean, even a week for Aubameyang and Adama Traore and Ferran Torres to play together, to practice together, get one more game under their belt, Barcelona have the ability to be better a week from now. I'm not sure if Napoli can really improve upon what they're doing in Serie A. If anything, they might lose something because they were just coming off that high of that 1-1 draw with Inter Milan. So Barcelona are the team that, not to say they're going to be radically different a week from now, of course not, but they could actually have some positive things happen to them. We might get some good news in the interim. Until that time, though, there is the matchup against Valencia on the weekend. Here's hoping that nobody gets hurt in that one, and then it's back to finish up what could be Barcelona advancing to the next round of this knockout phase of the Europa League. So until then, Forza Barca.